Welcome everyone, Costin here with Total War Warhammer 2 Mortal Empires, and in this particular video I am going to play a campaign on Legendary Very difficulty as Tyrion. The difficulty setting is set to Legendary, the battle difficulty is set to Very Hard, 20-minute battle time limit. There are no mods enabled for this particular video with the exception of the Toggle Fog of War mod, just to showcase the map over here and talk about certain things. Now, the reason I'm making this video is I think people do have rose-tinted goggles about how good Warhammer 2 was. I do personally believe that Warhammer 3 is, in quite a lot of ways, the superior product. Even though it does have a lot of issues that I've talked about, the auto-resolve situation, the siege battle situation, all that kind of stuff. So don't get me wrong, I'm perfectly willing to criticize Warhammer 3. But I don't necessarily think Warhammer 2 was the superior product. And certainly we gotta remember how Warhammer 2 was for a very, very long period of time and how Creative Assembly improved it. Now, I do believe it is a reasonable expectation to hope that the end product of Warhammer 3 will end up being vastly superior to Warhammer 2. But even just booting the game up here, one of the things to mention over here is that Warhammer 2 does not handle 1440p resolution all that well, and compared to Warhammer 3. I can scale the UI up, sure, but it does end up looking pretty weird when I do so. So if I go into graphics, I go into advanced, and it's already at 150%. So if I just apply like 160, I have poor eyesight, so for me to actually just see this. Another thing to mention is that the way the UI is in Warhammer 3, like the way the icons are, the way things show up, I find that the Warhammer 3 UI is just much more readable. Now, yes, I am using a game filter, but even if I turn this off, right, it's still... It can feel like the UI is jarring. Not the actual game graphics, not the battles or anything like that, just how things are readable. Now, beyond that aspect, though, what I also have to mention with respect to that, to this, is that there's a lot of functionality that Warhammer 3 includes right now, like for instance being able to move in an ambush stance, not having to switch back to it. I thought that they had changed that to Warhammer 2. Like, it's not in Warhammer 1, and I played Warhammer 1 quite recently just to see how it was, but I thought that was in Warhammer 1. I was wrong, and those kind of quality of life features do make a difference from my perspective. I will say at least that selecting a Lord over here can feel better compared to some of the things I do have to deal with in compared to some of the things that I have to deal with in Warhammer 3. Like, just the magical selection can certainly feel like a bit of an issue from my perspective. Now I'm looking at recruiting a Lord that has a good trait, and it seems like you gotta remember that the traits are different from Warhammer 2 to Warhammer 3, so it doesn't seem that I have any Archmage. There we go. Like, Ridiculed is what I want. It's Lord of Metal. Okay. And what I want to do here is get a bunch of archers with light armor. Take note of the fact that I have 3 recruitment slots over here. If I look at my settlement building, that's not increasing in any way, shape, or form my recruit capacity. None of the buildings I have are doing that. And I'm gonna just start getting military advancements and also getting reload time reduction over there for archery prowess. The performance of Warhammer 2 is vastly superior to Warhammer 3, like just moving the map here, which is expected, like turning Fog of War, all that kind of stuff. Like, the campaign map just runs significantly better. I think that's because Warhammer 3 is still using the same engine as Warhammer 2, though they just added more graphical effects, they changed the trees, etc., etc. And you do have the corruption overlay, but I think that's precisely what's happening there, why it's running better, because like we've seen with Troy, how Troy can handle a reasonably large map or even free kingdoms with better performance. Now,
We have much to discuss.
diplomacy
Come,
is
join me.
also significantly more limited, I would argue.
is
Okay,
forbidden.
so she's gonna reject my offer if I go and ask for a non-aggression pact. Let's get military access.
time
Okay,
is
so
now.
she's gonna accept the military access pact with me.
Your weight and
I'm
wisdom
not
go
gonna be able to
gladly.
trade with her until I get the port. I can trade, or I can try and get some kind of agreements over here. Non-aggression pact. That's also not gonna work. We also have Grom fighting. We also have Grom fighting Torres here. So if you're not playing Elfarian or Grom, they'll both start over here in Wolf 1. Elfarian will win. He starts with more troops. He has 2 starting armies. He has a far more powerful settlement over there. So, like, Ivres is gonna fall. Like, he has the provincial capital. That gives him, like, that's the win over there. Now, here's one thing I notice. It's like, and this is perhaps, like, just exclusive to Tyrion's campaign, though it's not the only campaign. The start of the campaign, not necessarily the overall campaign, just the start is substantially more difficult than what you have in Warhammer 3. I don't necessarily think this is a benefit, however, to Warhammer 2. I understand that a lot of people that played a lot of Warhammer 2 complain about how easy Warhammer 3 is. But I think, like, just starting with these number truths, because you have 6 units over here, you've got 9 units, you've got 15 units here to deal with from the very start, or you have an even more powerful army over here in the settlement, and you have a ruined settlement here. That creates quite a few issues to tackle. It certainly isn't the norm. There are campaign starts that are far easier, but I guess they decided to make Tyrion's campaign start far harder, purely because he does start with Lothern, and Lothern is obviously got a really powerful garrison. It would take a fairly substantial army for the Dark Elves to win. So, with that in mind, let's click that end turn button. And I might need to go over here and just disable the camera. Like, I think when it comes to, like, quality of life changes, Warhammer 3 has Warhammer 2B. Like, not having to select the camera, all that kind of stuff. Like, in terms of, like, just picking up a game to play, that situation is absolutely going to favor... that's absolutely going to favor Warhammer 3. Now, I set up an ambush here because I just couldn't win the battle. There were just too many units in over there. Load times are reasonable in Warhammer 2. Keep in mind, I did not install this on my NVMe drive, as I do have my... and this is running substantially better than my SSD. And I kind of, like, deliberately laid that situation. Like, so they're still attacking me, and, like, I could possibly win the field battle in the settlement. Keep in mind, there are no minor settlement battles in Warhammer 2. But it, like, would have been fairly touch and go over there. What are you guys doing? I gave you an order to move. It's like, okay. Alright, so we're gonna take Tyrion. We're gonna beeline it for the enemy leader. There is no keybind, at least not one that's available over here to use guard mode. Keep in mind, they are the attackers over here, so they're going to be the ones having to push through against me. Also keep in mind in Warhammer 2 that AI armies do get significant benefits in terms of their melee ability. So, like, here I really need to be careful. Now, these Ifilmar chariots are quite good flankers. The Silver Helms, they're also good flankers, but they also have the situation where... Okay, so we really want to take out those Dark Shards, and we want to go for their leader. It does feel like things do die, like, you know, this kind of damage in a single arrow volley from... Like, I understand why people... I kind of remember why people would use, like, these kind of archers. Like, just look at what they're doing to these Dark Shards. Now, granted, these Dark Shards are not the shielded version, so that's not the context we're dealing with here in this particular battle. But even so, the damage we're doing here is pretty damn absurd, actually, I gotta tell you. So over here we're gonna start targeting those Dark Shards. And yeah, just use Tyrion as distraction carnifex, as they call it on the tabletop. I don't play the tabletop, but I've read enough about from the ID4chan wiki to know like a lot of these terms. So okay, so the charge went off over there. Now my goal over here is to do a significant amount of damage. I will say one thing. I appreciate the fact they changed it, but here's one thing I will really give credit to Warhammer to. Like, just from this battle alone, and keep in mind, I tried various starts, and this is the one that I ultimately settled, because I tried attacking both settlements. Like, you can attack both settlements on, like, you can attack either of the settlements that the Dark Elves start with on turn 1. Because you can go via the sea to the one that's next to the Shrine of Assyrian, all that kind of good stuff. And I tried doing that, and I tried winning both of those battles, and it just didn't really work well for me. Okay, we're about to win over here. Let's take down their leader, try and win that particular engagement. So effectively, like, Tyrion's difficult start, certainly starting with this many enemy units in fortified settlements with garrisons in them, is going to make your life somewhat harder. Okay, let's try and take those guys out. And let's just try and kill as many of them as I can. Can we kill their lord, actually? I wonder. Nope, he's gonna escape. Okay, so we won a decisive victory. The enemy leader got away, but most of his army did not, so I might just be able to out-resolve against this particular army, especially if I bring my Archmage over from Lothern. I do start with a noble as opposed to a mage, and that's interesting. And I can't stress enough how the performers would have gotten more money, all that kind of stuff, maybe even gotten an alliance there. We do lose out on some influence, but I think, yeah, we're gonna want that. Even if it does affect my influence to a degree, even if it does affect my casualty replenishment over here, then we get the objective. So we're gonna get Root Marcher. I could have gotten, and we're gonna get casualty replenishment, and Tyrion is gonna go there. Okay, so it would be a Pyrrhic victory. And now I am going to transfer over these guys over here.
Student of Teclis.
Okay, let's do that. Should be fine.
There is glory to be won.
And we just occupy it.
This place is ours. Ulfwon's defender.
Maybe I should get another unit. Okay, so she's gonna march back here. Tyrion is gonna get Inspiring Presence. He's gonna stay as he is, because he got nothing.
You stand before the
Let's try and get the non-aggression pact. I think she may have lost her army. I think they made the deliberate decision in Warhammer 2 with Immortal Empires that the campaign starts at least should not feel frustrating, or, you know, the situation where you can't even win your initial battle if you're not really careful. One of the things I really disliked about Shogun 2, actually, was that every time you started a campaign, like, especially as the Oda in particular, like, your initial battle was a fucking nightmare. That was certainly an aspect that I did not appreciate about that particular game. Now, I know I have that supply line situation. I'm going to get more archers with light armor. Why archers with light armor? Why not go for the higher level armor? This is, by the way, where the AI is going to really screw itself over, I might add, over its decision making, because it's moved its army over there. And by doing so, they've, like in Warhammer 2, you do lose the units. Now, they have good replenishment, but they're still going to end up weaker, and obviously the garrison is not going to be in their settlement over here. So their capital is now vulnerable, and, well, that's a great situation for me to deal with. I might be tempted to disband my second army. Now, the income of the High Elves, actually it is the same as it was before. Interesting, though. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna pick up the plaza.
At your service.
And I should have enough movement points. I certainly hope so. Yep.
Never. To victory.
Okay. Right, so that would cost me those units.
For my queen.
Alright. Let's get sword weapon master.
High Elven Archmage.
Maybe I should wait until they rebuild the Shrine of Assyrian and just take it over.
Mercy.
What would I lose? Though I would win this situation quite easily. I don't know how to feel about the range meta in Warhammer than it is in Warhammer 3. Like overall. Or rather, melee is far more useful in Warhammer 3 comparatively. Kind of wish there was a way to build the Checkerbox formation just by default, but still, gonna put these guys back. Okay. And our reinforcements, we can't move that in this game. Like, again, quality of life feature changes compared to things we had compared to things we have right now in Warhammer 3. I don't like the flow of battles though so far. I think like when I think about Warhammer 3, like, you know that phrase where it's like you can optimize all the fun away? Like, I'm looking at Warhammer 3 and it certainly feels like it might be living up to that moniker, in the sense that it is the more optimized game, I suppose, like balance-wise, you name it. Well, we'll see how long that lasts. But like, okay, so we're going to want, I'm gonna take the chariots. Okay, let's try and do that. They're gonna take some damage, but it's fine. Gonna get those FLMR chariots. Okay, turn that off. Okay, she's gonna be very slow to get to me. And let's get those dark shards with shields and pull these guys back. Send the spearmen in.
Archers, orders received. Acknowledged. Understood.
So yeah, Silver Helm's taking a significant amount of damage. It is even the shielded version, so it's the one that's supposed to end up taking less damage, but they're absolutely taking... Okay, let's do that. Curiously have already a bug there. Okay, let's try and do some damage there. Okay, so we got their effect over there. So the dark shards with shields. Okay.
forth! Archers, for our ancestors!
There we go. Casting some spells. I won't be able to maintain 2 armies, even as the mighty freaking
Shall be done. It shall be done.
okay, shades going there.
For order, the Reaper.
They should start breaking soon enough. And yeah, I don't really give a shit about the Silver Helms. They just don't have the charge potential. Those guys are gonna die soon enough if I don't pull them back. Units do seem to rout more,
Tireless.
even in my own, like, in my own army. They seem to rout more in Warhammer
It will be done. Heir of Anarian.
3, so that's more about... And I'm thinking here, like, I've played a lot of Tyrion's campaign, it's suffice to say, in both these games. Obviously, you do forget things, because, like, I haven't played Warhammer 2 really since Warhammer 3 came out. So I'm just jiggling my memory, if you will, with regards to this. Let's get these guys out and get Tyrion in.
Orders received. Archers, to the fray. Understood.
Okay. Send those Ephemeral chariots. Okay, that should be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And these guys are effectively defeated. Okay, Val is 1. Certainly had to work for that a bit. But, so I can understand where people are saying, oh, Warhammer 2 are more difficult. But it is more difficult because compared to, like, what Tyrion has to deal with in freaking Warhammer 3, different perspective. I don't think a game is difficult just because it forces you to do, like, more things to avoid. Okay. To do these kind of battles. Like, I don't consider that any kind of, like, real difficulty from my perspective. It just means you have to fight more battles. That's all. That's not difficulty. Like, I understand people have different perspectives on the auto-resolve, all that kind of stuff, but that to me is not really difficulty. That just means that the grind you have to go through is higher in this game compared to Warhammer 3. And I actually think, because, like, look at the situation, right? Once I deal with these Dark Elves, and I basically dealt with them, because there's nothing there, right? There's just the provincial capital, there's the garrison, which is not... They instantly built it? Okay, fair enough. But, like, once I deal with this, and once I deal with Safri, there's nothing that's going to stop me, effectively, right? Noctilus is like, what the hell is Noctilus, right? He's not no one. He's a nobody. He's not going to do shit, more or less. And he's not even doing stuff. Okay,
Champion of the Ever-Queen.
can I take the Shrine of Assyrian without having to fight the battle? That would be certainly a welcome development. Yes, it would be a decisive victory.
Oriah.
Though I am a bit surprised, but I guess... Okay.
Bring me battle.
And they're finished.
Servant.
So we got the Shrine of Assyrian. Public order, upkeep, recruit rank, construction cost. Or I can just put that off, get there another income building. I can't really maintain that many more units at this particular point. Now you can make obviously the argument that you don't need archers with light armor, but even then I wouldn't really be able to... Okay. We can get influence per turn. Yeah, let's go with that. While the replenishment would certainly be really useful, I think that it's more important at this particular point in my campaign Okay. So who the heck is he at war with Carcassonne? He's at war with Bretonia. Let's not get involved in that affair. Okay. No, they're not gonna give me that.
No.
Okay. Yeah, they're not gonna... Okay. Join war against Tor. I mean, they're at war with Marafi, which is the more concerning aspect. Let's try 400.
Of course.
Okay. I just need some money.
I'm listening.
Defender of the Phoenix.
And now I'm gonna wipe out Safri.
You called?
Because for whatever reason, Creative Assembly decided the best thing that players should do in this damn game is go to war against Safri if you're playing... Okay, so commandment, faction-wide, construction cost. Let's go growth. I may have picked up some bad habits from Warhammer 3 and I'm applying here. Oh, that performance on the campaign map. Damn! Can I have this campaign performance in Warhammer 3? That would be fucking amazing, wouldn't it? That really would. No freaking joke. Okay, so we got an army from Noctilus there. It is so juicy and vulnerable there.
My strength grows.
Okay. Unhappy. Fire messenger. I just got a commandment that boosts my public order, so I think I'm pretty fine going that. Okay. So we can't... Okay. Right. Oh no, it's Calidor. My bad. Calidor is chasing Noctilus. It's like, get screwed. Okay. What I need to know is can... Yes, they can. So I'm tempted. Where is she? Right, let's do it. I could do it. Okay, how much movement point does she have? Okay, I can sack the settlement. And I think I'll need to do so. Just for the sake of the money that I'm going to need. Those 3 recruitment slots do have a significant difference. Now, it's not really ideal for me to try and get 3 stacks at this point with the campaign mechanics, if you will, of Warhammer 3 in the sense that you really realize the kind of versatility that you do have with armies in Warhammer 3. And that's certainly something, isn't it? Okay, they're not gonna move anywhere close. Okay, Illyrian Reavers. Remember. Okay. So my spearman took a bit of damage, but nothing too substantial, and certainly not something I can't fix. Okay, let's not do that. And the AI is better, because, like, it's not wasting its ammunition. Like, in Warhammer 3, it would not waste its ammunition trying to shoot at Tyrion.
Orders received. Yes. Forward. It shall be done. It shall be done. Ifulmard chariots.
Easy battle, easy life. There we go. See, when you see battles like this, you understand why people want the siege change in Warhammer 3. It's because this shit is crap to do, and it's really tiresome to do as well. And we're talking here hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these fucking battles again and again. This is not fun. And like, what I think a lot of us wanted was to change that dynamic of these best in the world, but certainly significantly better than what the Skaven, the poor bloody Skaven have. Okay, so we sack that, we take it over, we build up. And I'm going to build up my economy. I'm also going to recruit a bunch of units. So I'm going to start recruiting a bunch of archers. Going to push myself pretty much to the limit. We're going to get more casualty replenishment. We're also going to get inspiring presence. And we're going to go get spear wall and also get that. Okay. Now, what is important to note is that I am certainly getting less money over here, and you know, people talk about the passivity of the AI. Look at Alariel. Do you know where Alariel would be by turn 6 over here? She wouldn't be in the Gaian Vale, having lost her initial army. She would be on the bloody Phoenix Gate, going toe-to-toe potentially with Nakari, or taking Torfinu from Safri. That's where she would be right now. Like a lot of people comment on the AI passivity. It's like, you want to talk about how the AI is passive? The only thing that's happened so far on Wolf 1 from all the AI factions, Noctil has been chased by Calador, Elfarian has taken Trilinia, and that is effectively it, right? It's like, and Alariel managed to lose her entire starting army to Sword of Cain, who, by the way, can't have no chance in hell of taking the Gaian Vale, so it's like pretty meaningless, and she's gonna recover. That's all that has happened in this campaign so far. Just to understand, like, when people talk about like how passive the AI is, I understand that you can talk about the idea that things may be, you know, slower if you're playing on a lower difficulty. I certainly get annoyed by that a great deal myself. Let's be careful here, because we do have an entire damn stack over there. Though we can also lure it out, potentially. So I'm just going to set up a nice, lovely ambush over there and try and wipe them out. They only have that one army. Now, I'm going to go bankrupt doing this, by the way. This might be a bad idea in a lot of ways. So that's going to take... Okay. So that's going to be a bit of an issue in terms of public order. They kind of pushed it... Like, I'm going to have to send my armies back, or one of my armies. I think, like, once I deal with the White Tower of Hoeth, things will change. But the much vaunted AI posing a significant challenge. I understand this is the easiest campaign in the game, right? It's one of the easiest by far, but it's like if you're trying to... But people who are saying that kind of notion that, oh, the game is so much harder in Warhammer 2. The start was harder, the rest is a joke, right? Like at this point...
My ancestors would be proud.
It is a shame that I failed that ambush. That would have been nice. Attack instantly, so...
To victory.
Trained by the White Tower.
So I'm just gonna bring her there. We do have some money, so we're just gonna do that.
Glory to be won.
And also... Experience gain for all spellcaster. Let's do that. Can't change his stance.
Orion.
We're just gonna have to wait one turn. But yeah, it feels like a load of rubbish, honestly. Okay, we're gonna have a siege battle for the White Tower of Hoeth. We're gonna take a look at that. Obviously, right now it's not giving me a good result. We're not gonna have a siege battle because we can freaking auto-resolve the shit out of this. And yeah, we lose some units. Boo-hoo! All of these units are low rank, so who gives a crap, right?
I lust for battle.
And we just select this.
Let them go.
And then we can probably either out-resolve the next battle, or I go in and get some more reinforcements. Interesting note that if I was playing that, if I was out-resolving that battle in Warhammer 3, that would have wiped out.
Alario. Bring me battle.
But it's whatever. Okay, we're just gonna occupy it.
Shield against
It
the
would have been nice to have a barracks there, but so be it.
magic.
She's gonna have to go back.
Give me my tomes.
The Bray herds come.
A new fortress of magic.
Okay, so she's gonna give all of that to Tyrion. Tyrion's gonna move out.
I know my destination.
And we are... And that is going to be effectively it.
Shield of Alario.
Now, people talk about, like, the odds resolve in Warhammer 2, like, if it's some awful thing. Like, specifically when I'm talking about these kind of things, right? You gotta understand that time. Okay, so chapter objectives. I do like the chapter objective aspect, so we need to get the Promenade, and we need to get the Phoenix Gate. That's gonna be a fun one.
You stand before the mistress.
Okay, she's finally getting ready to roll out. Oh, good job, Valerial. You're finally ready to do your freaking job.
Be sure you do not waste my time.
In Father's name.
What do you want?
Queen, you have my.
Okay, so Zaffrey is gone. Octolus has genuinely lost to Calidor. But just bear that in mind. Say what you will. Like, again, one of the things that Warhammer 3 did is they made the Legendary Lord factions to be substantially stronger than the AI factions, so the Legendary Lord factions get to significantly higher economic armor too. It's why you see. And again, I'm not using any mod beyond like Toggle Fog of War, so it's not like, oh, the mods are doing it. No, the mods are doing shit. You would give me a valiant defeat when Tyrion and the Noble could probably slaughter the whole lot of them over there. Okay, so we got the Invocation of Val. We're gonna face a rebellion over here, by the way. So let's get the Shrine of Assyrian. Now, almost certainly gonna face a rebellion here as well. Okay, more units. Well, this is certainly not the ideal High Elven army. It is a pretty solid one all the same.
Attack.
Okay. There's no way that, like, if he had, like, if all these units were archers, maybe. So, gonna give these guys some speed unit. Okay. Okay, so I've played 16 turns over here in this campaign. I'm just about to go pick up the Sword of Cain, as it were, or get the Shrine of Cain, rather. And at this point, I do consider that I've effectively won the campaign. When I say effectively won the campaign, I've gotten to a position that, well, I just won't lose. Now, granted, this is easily the most powerful, or one of the most powerful Legendary Lords in the game in Warhammer 2, with one of the best starting positions in Warhammer 2 as well. But this is also the case in Warhammer 3. Now, I do greatly appreciate the performance that we do have on the campaign map, the loading times, etc., in Warhammer 2 versus Warhammer 3. That's something I do vastly appreciate in this game versus Warhammer 3, where things can take quite a very long time. In terms of campaign mechanics, though, diplomacy, AI behavior, etc., I think, like, Warhammer 3 is far better. Like, the AI is... Like, if the AI in Warhammer 3 is incredibly passive, then... Well, the AI in Warhammer 2 is far more so in terms of that respect. Like, look at Alfarian versus Grom. Like, basically, neither of these two have done pretty much anything in this campaign. Mazmundi has basically been steamrolled by the Skaven and basically forced into Hexuatl. There are some factions that have accomplished things like Alifanar, but like, look at Morathi. Like, Morathi by this point would have control over effectively this entire area in the west, and she'd be moving on the east. That would happen in Immortal Empires on Legendary very hard. Malekith would accomplish things slower, but that's because he has to deal with Grombrindle, he has to deal with Valkia potentially as well. So obviously because he has this safe corner of the map in Mortal Empires as opposed to Immortal Empires, he will accomplish more, though he will build himself a massive empire in Immortal Empires as well. But like in general, just the AI behavior seems far more passive with respect to that. On top of that, you do have far more limited resources in Warhammer 2 that can obviously make your campaigns harder, as it were, because supply lines do take a significantly higher chunk of your income in Warhammer 2 than they do in Warhammer 3. There are factions that absolutely have no supply lines, like Chaos Orbs, for instance, in Warhammer 3. So I think the supply line situation, it obviously forces you to make different decisions, but I am certainly the kind of player that does prefer having more armies, having more things happening around the campaign map, having also the AI just being more aggressive. Because remember, while the AI is not affected by these things as much as you are, it will ultimately still be affected by things like supply lines. That said, the reason the AI does end up posing a greater challenge in the end game in Warhammer 2 as opposed to Warhammer 3 is not because the AI is better or has better tactics. In fact, its tactics in Warhammer 2, from what I've seen, are quite inferior. However, here's the difference between the two games. In Warhammer 2, you as the player, if we're looking at skill lines, Inspiring Presence doesn't give you experience per turn. And you have far less effects that are just going to give you a passive experience benefit to your armies, whereas the AI has a lot of benefits to the experience. Like you look at Grom's army over here, he has rank 6 Orc Boys that I imagine he basically started with over here in his army. So this is something that does happen to the AI in Warhammer 2 as opposed to Warhammer 3. I mean, it does happen in Warhammer 3, but it's more balanced between you and the AI, and that as a result of that, you just end up steamrolling it. Where the AI, like every AI faction that you will encounter will eventually at one point, even if they've done literally nothing the entire campaign, it does seem like a lot of them are going to do literally nothing, they'll end up having highly experienced armies with at least some kind of rankings on their lords and legendary lords. Not because of the battles, but because of the passive experience gain that they do have on their units. They also have a lot of income benefits, upkeep benefits, growth benefits, all that, so they'll have higher tier settlements as well to go along with that. But I do think that the way that Creative Assembly handles anything related to the campaign is better in Warhammer 3 than 2. In terms of battles, the AI is just worse off overall in Warhammer 2. Like, it will blob up on you in battles more, it will break more, it's going to be more exploitable in battles, and in the campaign, by the way. That will happen across the board. Here's a major difference, though, in terms of the battle situation. Melee, the AI gets a lot of benefits in melee in Warhammer 2 that doesn't have in Warhammer 3. So melee is far more viable in Warhammer 3 than Warhammer 2. There are pros and cons with that particular approach, but like overall melee ends up being better. However, while I certainly do appreciate the melee buffs, I don't necessarily appreciate the ranged nerf, the significant range nerf. Like you look at archers with light armor for the high elves, they're doing 27 damage over here. There are high-end units that will not do this kind of level of damage in Warhammer 3. And like a tier 1 unit, certainly one of the best ones in the game, but a tier 1 ranged unit will end up doing more damage. Not armor piercing damage, but there's also units that have quite a lot of damage and don't have armor piercing. I'm looking at the Ice Guard for Kislev, for instance. That may actually end up doing less. So range is less potent, melee is more potent in Warhammer 3. And what I do appreciate is that in Warhammer 2, things can die very, very quickly, right? Especially from ranged. So things can die very, very quickly, and that does force you to approach battles in a way that is quite a bit different than Warhammer 3, and I would argue just the flow of battles feels better, even though the AI is far worse off. Though, of course, you can also exploit the AI far more so. The sentiment I would go for when we're thinking about Warhammer 2 versus Warhammer 3, like with Warhammer 3, they seem to have been really focused on balancing things out, but there's that saying, as I stated, the saying that you can really optimize the fun away from a game. Now, I don't necessarily agree with people who say that, but I certainly understand where it's coming from, because if every faction is the same, if everyone has like the same kind of missile strength, melee strength, all that kind of stuff, or each faction can reach that kind of potential, if there's no faction that has like ridiculous units like the archers with light armor, there are certainly ridiculous units in Warhammer 3, but it just feels like Creative Assembly really focused heavily on the balance there, and it might have been detrimental to the fun factor that does exist in the game. That is my personal perspective with regards to that. I do appreciate the performance. I do appreciate the intern time. I do appreciate the loading screens. But like in terms of UI, in terms of campaign mechanics, in terms of like overall campaign flow, I think like Warhammer 3 is better. But there are certainly things that Warhammer 2 does better as well. In terms of difficulty, it's different in the sense that in Warhammer 3, the AI will be very aggressive, it will take territory very quickly, it will attack you very quickly. In Warhammer 2, it's far more passive with respect to that from what I have noticed. Though, again, this is a early game campaign, but still, like, I'm just seeing what's happening on the campaign map, and it's like, there's a lot of passive factions over here, major factions, minor factions. Like, some things are happening, of course, like, some territories have been taken, but, like, compared to, like, Grimgor taking, like, 2-3 provinces within this kind of time span, like, he's taken 2, he's working on, he's taken one, he's moving on his second. Like, you just feel like, at least on the higher difficulty of Warhammer 3, that AI can accomplish more quicker and can really take advantage of all the bonuses it has. The overall strategy is better. I don't think Warhammer 2 is more difficult. It's difficult in a different way because of all the experience benefits that the AI has versus the lack of experience benefits that you have as a player. So you need to be more careful with your armies, how you're using them. It's more difficult to maintain large armies, all that kind of stuff. But like overall, I just think like the overall situation campaign is just better in Warhammer 3 than 2. That would be my personal perspective on the matter. Questine here, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.